What's happening, everybody? It's good to be back. I had the week off from live streams last week. I had to travel for work, but back today, back this week. It's good to be back as we hit August. One more month down, another month to go before football season. It's getting close. Those training camp videos, they're all throughout Twitter right now. Everyone's overreacting or underreacting. Nah, mostly overreacting to highlight reels or just on a play-by-play basis in 7-on-7 where they're in half pads or mostly shorts, but the players are putting some stuff on out on the field and therefore on tape, so to speak. So everyone's all excited. It's peak preseason season, so to speak. Hall of Fame game is this week on Thursday between the Browns and the Jets. We're not going to see any of the main names play in that game. Deshaun Watson is not going to play for the Browns. Nick Chubb, Amari Cooper, not going to play for Cleveland. Aaron Rodgers not going to play for the Jets. Same can be said for Garrett Wilson. Obviously, Breece Hall's not going to play. He's still not even fully ramped up to practice yet. So it's not going to be, we're not going to see the regular cast of Hall of Fame game. What's going on, Crumply Hats? Is the audio's struggling? I don't know why this is always an issue. Let me see if that's any better. Hopefully that's maybe a little bit better. Figured the headphones might lock in or block out any outside noise, but hopefully not. Hopefully not any issues. Yeah, I think my levels are okay. But if you guys are having any issues here, you just let me know. So I got some tight end rankings today. This one is always obviously a little different than rankings for other positions. Quarterback rankings, running back rankings, wide receiver rankings. That's a little bit more cut and dry. Tight end is obviously the most fluid position with a couple of high-end names, and then generally speaking, at the end of season rankings, it's like a ragtag crew that usually fills out the bottom half of the TE1s. Generally speaking, it's considered a barren wasteland of a position. So it's going to be less of a traditional rankings show. I'll give you my top 12. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on those guys. I will highlight some of the top 12 names that I do like at cost this year for your redraft leagues, and then we'll go over some sleepers that I'm a little bit more interested in. I'm not going to necessarily rank those guys. Just here's some tight ends I like at cost. I like at their ADP. All of these dudes that I kind of qualify as sleepers or outside the top 100 from an ADP perspective. Hell, there's several guys that crack the top 12 rankings that are outside the top 100 for one quarterback ADP. It's just such a difficult position to chart and track year over year outside of the top flight names. So we'll do that. Get through some tight end rankings today. If you're interested in rankings for any of the other positions, those live streams are live on the channel. I believe I timestamped all of them. So let me know if you ever retroactively go back and, if you're looking for anybody specifically, let me know and I can help you locate that. So top 12, it's 2 parts for each one. Top 24 rankings, 1 through 12 and 13 to 24 each for quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers. Those are on the channel. We'll briefly cover top 12 tight ends today. Focus a little bit more on 2 factors with the tight ends. Guys in the top 12 who I like specifically, who I am going out of my way to target if I do choose to spend up at tight end, and then also guys that I'm looking at if I'm punting the position, which is the most common position to end up punting in whether it's one quarterback or a super flex. It's the most common punted position in redraft leagues. So, and then of course, as always, any questions in the chat, happy to take those. With the season fast approaching for you members, first of all, appreciate your continued support of the channel. I do believe we have, I think it's I got to double check, but it's around 6 or 7 members who would be eligible for the members only leagues. So we are a bit short on members who are in, who are eligible for Facemask Fantasy's members only league. So if you are interested in playing fantasy football with me this year, I did adjust our membership fees for this season. I think it's like a $2.99 monthly subscription. If you want to play fantasy football with me, I will of course be the commissioner for those leagues. I don't know that I'm necessarily going to get to Dynasty this year with it already being August, and obviously with some of the a turnover that I had to deal with over the course of this offseason. It was just not something that I was able to get together in time. So it'll be redrafts for one more season. And then next year, I will look at introducing in 2024 the first Facemask Fantasy Dynasty League. That'll be something I look forward to in 2024. But for this season, if anybody's interested, I do believe I think it's the starter level. It's in the description, the starter level membership. If you do sign up for that, you can play fantasy football with me and some of the members of this channel. It's always fun. It's usually just bragging rights, and I take care of all of the commissioner stuff. So if you're interested in that, there are more details about memberships on this channel. It should be the first link in the description of this live stream and pretty much any video that you go find on the channel. If you would be interested in considering that. So something to think about. Greg, Alex, good to see you guys as well. Thanks for coming in. I know Crumbly had said off the top my audio was skipping a little bit. I haven't seen anybody else say that yet, so hopefully it's a little bit better now. As you guys know, let me know, and I'll try to course correct if there's any issues here. Tight end rankings, questions in the chat, and then I guess a couple of items to talk about as you know, now that training camp is in full force. The big one, of course, is Jonathan Taylor having demanded a trade officially. This happened over the weekend. Saturday night, he officially demanded a trade. I haven't talked about this with you guys live, but I did cover it with a sort of a backfield breakdown for the Indianapolis Colts. That video is live on the channel. It mostly highlights Evan Hall, the Colts' 5th-round rookie that they selected in the 2023 draft. You can check that out. The short variation here is it doesn't look like anything is going to come to any type of positive resolution, at least today, right now, between Taylor and the Colts. It's looking like he's possibly on the way out in Indianapolis after the Colts completely failed to extend an offer to him. They don't seem to be interested in doing that at all. So we're operating, at least right now, as if Taylor has played his last game in Indianapolis. On top of that, I think it was just yesterday, Zach Moss, who would potentially be the first guy to get a crack at starting opportunity for the Colts, sans Taylor or without Taylor. He broke his arm in practice yesterday. He's expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. They may err on the side closer to 6 weeks just because it's training camp. They don't need to rush him yet. If he misses the first couple weeks of the season, that might be a pill that they're willing to swallow if it means that they're able to get him back healthy 100% by, say, week 2 or 3, maybe week 3 or 4. So with that, obviously the Colts become a suitor for any one of the available veteran running backs that have yet to sign. Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Darrell Henderson, Ezekiel Elliott. There are plenty of options for any RB needy teams that may result from either an injury or, in the case of several running backs this year, a holdout. So we'll see what develops there. But at least right now, it's Deion Jackson and Evan Hall in the Colts backfield. I talk a little bit about that in the video. Again, it's on the channel, most recent video that I posted. If you care to check that out, hear a little bit more thoughts about that. So that's the big ticket item that we'll have to continue to monitor. Devastating news yesterday out of Broncos camp. Tim Patrick, who has been rock solid in his career when healthy, missed all of last season. Suffers a torn Achilles yesterday. He's obviously going to miss the rest of this, or the entire 2023 season. His NFL career is probably officially in serious jeopardy, which really sucks. The guy had posted, I think, prior to that, back-to-back 50-catch seasons with some bad quarterback play. was a good player, has been a good player, but these past couple seasons have been a really difficult couple for Tim Patrick. Got to wonder what his NFL career looks like at this point moving forward, now having missed 2 straight seasons due to season-ending injuries. So, on top of that, KJ Hamler is expected to miss a month. The Broncos waived him, I think, with an injury designation. The expectation is they'll possibly look to bring him back, probably look to bring him back, but he's going to miss a month. So, I mean, the onus is kind of on, I guess, Marvin Mims at this point. He's going to have to step up and possibly do a little bit more than, depending on how the Broncos feel about his development. They may need him to get a little bit more involved to start the season behind Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. On top of all of this, can't imagine that while those 2 names were floated around in trade rumors earlier this offseason, I think specifically Sutton more so than Jeudy, can't imagine the Broncos look to do that or look to shop or move either one of those guys now that their depth has taken a serious hit. So Marvin Mims, onus is going to be on him a little bit to see if he can step up into that third receiver role after the Broncos lose Tim Patrick. And then also K. Hamler is expected to miss at least the next month. Training camp, practices, preseason, whatever have you, with an injury designation. And the team waived him on top of that. So it's possible he's just not back at all. I believe Mims is tending to an injury of his own. I think he returned to practice today. So it's probably minor. Broncos might need him to step up sooner than later, their second round pick in the 2023 NFL draft. Another new, piece of information that came down today out of Bengals camp. Bengals running back Travion Williams had to be carted off after an injury in practice. The early indication, it looks like it's it looked like it was either a calf or an ankle sprain is what I most recently saw. So probably all things considered, that's a sigh of relief. Anytime an NFL player gets carted off, they can't put weight on something. It's like you automatically fear the worst. But we got to remember, Joe Burrow just a few days ago got carted off. This is normal in NFL practice, in training camp practices. Players are going to get carted off. It could be heat. It's extreme precaution. You don't necessarily automatically assume the worst just because the cart comes out in training camp. Thankfully, the initial reports for Travion Williams appear to kind of support that. It might have just been out of severe precaution to protect the player in a non-game situation, a non-regular season situation. So if it's a strain, expect he's going to miss a couple of weeks. Chase Brown should get a couple more opportunities to potentially run with the ones, or at least so, if not longer. And again, if it's anything worse for Travion Williams, like the Colts, the Bengals are potentially in the free agent market for, again, the same names: Leonard Fournette, Kareem Hunt, Darrell Henderson, Ezekiel Elliott. So we'll continue to monitor that, but initial reports seem to indicate that Travion Williams avoided something more significant than a strain that would keep him out for a couple of weeks. I think those are the somewhat noteworthy news and notes from around training camp so far. I've been seeing some positive reports from Cardinals camp about Michael Wilson, from Giants camp about Jalen Hyatt, from Cowboys camp about Deuce Vaughn. Take as much stock in these training camp reports as you care to or don't care to. A lot of these practices they're not in pads. Obviously, nobody's going 100% full force at their own teammates when they eventually come on. It's great to hear that some of these rookies are performing well and showing out in practice, giving themselves an opportunity to earn more reps when those reps become a little bit more important. And for these guys, that happens in just a few days, honestly, 10 days or so for the first preseason games. first slate of preseason games. So, an impression early on. Let's see what happens when we get a little bit of real game action, even if it's just preseason for some of these guys. With that said, Greg, I see you have a question. Let me get to that right quick, and we'll do my tight end rankings and sleepers again. It'll be kind of fluid. I might just kind of like blast through the top 12 tight end rankings somewhat quickly. There's not as much dissecting, I think, that needs to be done as the other positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver. So you've got the second pick, Greg. I mean, my first question is obviously what's the scoring? If it's full PPR, it's Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp. If it's half PPR, it's Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp. If it's standard scoring, there's an argument for Christian McCaffrey. He goes number 1 overall. And then that's the case. Even in standard, I would just take Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is the consensus 101 in half PPR, one quarterback leagues this year. I'm personally warming up to Cooper Kupp as my potential 101 in half PPR leagues and full PPR leagues. Just looking at what he did on a per game basis last year in half PPR, he was over double digits in every single game. Even guys like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase can't say that about those guys. So if it's half, I mean, Jamar Chase is incredibly enticing. I imagine Justin Jefferson goes 101 in that situation. If he doesn't, feel free to just go, he's the chalky, easy option to go there. He's in his prime. Great situation to command targets in that offense. And he's just a stud. I'm personally a little bit more, I'm warming up to Cooper Kupp in half and full PPR. Guy that I would take. I did it in at least one best ball league. I did it where I took him first overall over Justin Jefferson, over Jamar Chase. Just go back and look at his games last year. Go back and look at his game log before he got injured. In half PPR scoring, I think his low water mark in a game was 13.5 or 4, maybe 13.2 half PPR points. When that's your low, you're the safest player on the board. So that's the guy I would look at. Cooper Kupp's being drafted as the wide receiver 3. I'm looking at him as the wide receiver 1 over Jefferson and Chase, especially in half and full PPR when he's going to get peppered with targets again. The only concern is obviously he's slightly older than Jefferson and Chase, and he missed the final 7 games or so last year due to injury. But Stafford is back. Sean McVay is still there. This Rams offense should be, at least as far as Cooper Kupp is concerned, this Rams offense should be solid. He should get funneled targets once again. That's where I would go, personally. But if you want to go Jamar Chase, if Justin Jefferson's off the board, that's fine, too. All right. My tight end rankings. I will give you guys my top 10. I'm just going to fire them off right now. And then I'll do a little bit of a breakdown for each one. But honestly, you know what you're getting with a lot of these guys. In order, the top 10 that I have: Travis Kelce, duh. Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, George Kittle, Dallas Goedert is 5. I have Kyle Pitts at 6. I have Darren Waller at 7. I have Evan Ingram at 8. I have David Njoku at 9. And I have Pat Freiermuth at 10. Kelce, we don't need him on this, right? Y'all know what you're getting. He's a top scoring half and full overall. Kelce, I'm not worried about the fact that he's 34 years old. Tight ends age like quarterbacks do, relatively gracefully, because they rely on athleticism, technically the way that wide receivers and running backs do. He's got the best quarterback in the NFL throwing him the ball. He's got the best head coach, top 2 minimum, in Andy Reid, calling the shots, calling the plays, running the offense from the sidelines. I'm not worried about Travis Kelce just because he's a little bit older. He should be peppered with targets. He is the bona fide tight end 1 until further notice, probably, honestly, until he just retires. we're not worried about Travis Kelce just because he's a little bit older. I have Mark Andrews as my tight end 2. He can regularly be had in the middle of the third round this year. I think his ADP is around 28, 29 in one quarterback leagues. Next to Mark Andrews, as I'm buying at Kelce, I'm buying 2. You don't need me to sell you on Travis Kelce, but perhaps you need me to sell you a little bit on Mark Andrews because he had a down year last year relative to expectation. How do I feel about Mark Andrews moving forward? Last year didn't feel so good. I drafted him probably top 15 overall, certainly top 20 overall, and the Richmond there wasn't great. Well, first of all, it's a new offense that we expect to throw the ball more in 2023. Todd Monken is expected to call more pass plays than Greg Roman. By all accounts, in Ravens practices, the pace of play for the offense has been significantly faster than it has been in years past. So we expect more plays, more plays to be run. And if they're throwing the ball, that means just by correlation, more targets for Mark Andrews. He was still the tight end 3 in points per game last year, averaging about 10.3 points per game. That was certainly beefed up early on in the year. Weeks 2, weeks 3, weeks 5, week 6 was when he went nuts for you. After that, it was bad, right? Week 7, terrible. 0.4 in half PPR. Week 8, 4.8, not good. Week 9, he didn't play. Week 10 was his bye week. Week 11, 9.3, not great. Week 12, 9, not great. Week 13, 7.4 half PPR points, not great. Week 14, 2.7, terrible. Week 15, 4.6, terrible. Week 16, 6, terrible. If you got to championship week with him in week 17, okay, he gave you 14 and a half points. You'll take that. That's an average tight end, top 3 tight end 1 performance. But he certainly did you no favors down the stretch or the first couple of playoff weeks. There's a good chance he submarined your chances. There were only probably a select few situations where people got the championship week with Mark Andrews as their starting tight end. So I understand being concerned about him because that he probably left a sour taste in your mouth to end the season. Lamar got hurt. Tyler Huntley stepped in. Andrews didn't see the same level of success with Huntley that he did when Lamar also went down in 2021. Therefore, his value is depreciated a little bit. Given the circumstances, given the fact that now it's Todd Monken as offensive coordinator, pace of play is expected to go up, pass plays are expected to be called. Mark Andrews remains the clear, I think, favorite to lead the team in targets. I'll take Mark Andrews with an ADP of 28 or 29. It was closer to Kelce's last year, his ADP, I think around like 15, 16, 17 in 2022. Now he's 10 spots cheaper with what I think is a better situation than the one he had last year. All Lamar has to do is stay healthy. Obviously, easier said than done, but you could say that for literally anybody. I like Mark Andrews this year. I have him as my tight end 2. I am drafting him at cost 28, 29. You should be buying him. You should be buying Mark Andrews. Tight end 3 is TJ Hawkinson. This is a little bit more out of respect for what he did last year because once he got traded to the Vikings, he went nuts. He had a great season last year, especially after the trade. I think it was around week 10 or maybe week 10. No, sorry, it would have been week 8. The trade deadline, I think, is like week 8. 9.5 half PPR points for Hawkinson, 11.5, 8, 6, 12.8, 5.3, 8.7. I know these numbers sound not great, but he was a pretty strong value last year. Hawkinson was getting drafted in like the 6th round, and you were getting the tight end 4 in fantasy points per game last year. So for what you spent on him, it's not as bad. 8.7, 6.8. He went nuclear in the fantasy semifinals in week 16. He had 29.4 points, 9.4 championship week in week 17. The reason I am not buying Hawkinson is because now he is being drafted about 2 rounds earlier than he was last year. And the Vikings drafted Jordan Addison in the 1st round, who is not going to be as good as Adam Thielen has been in Thielen's prime, but there's a decent chance that a young, rookie, athletic like Jordan Addison is better than last year's version of Adam Thielen. Jordan Addison should command a little bit more attention in the pecking order in the passing game for the Minnesota Vikings than a 32, 33-year-old Adam Thielen, who, yeah, I think he caught 6 touchdowns or 8 touchdowns last year, which is ho-hum what Adam Thielen does, but he lost a step last year. They have a better option on the outside in 2023 with Jordan Addison. I do think Hockenson is going to lose a few targets. And now that he's 2 rounds more expensive than he was in 2022, he's my tight end 3 out of respect for what he did, but I'm not really buying him this year. I am out on TJ Hockenson at cost. If he falls 10 spots, say into 10 to 15 spots, he falls into the 6th round. Okay. All right. That's a little bit more palatable. But outside of a couple of blow-up games, Hockenson was nice for you at cost last year, but you're going to be wanting more from the week-to-week output that he gave just last year. If you draft him in the 4th or 5th round, late 4th, early 5th round, which is where you're going to need to draft him this year, you're not going to be happy if, he gives you a 30 burger one week and a 25 burger the other week, and then he sprinkles in a 13-point game, an 11-point game, but it's all sandwiched between 6, 4 half PPR points, maybe 8 to 9 points 3 or 4 times, some hovering between 6, 9 points most of the time. You're not going to be happy with that. You're not going to feel good about the week-to-week output relative to where you have to draft TJ Hockenson this year. I have him ranked as my tight end 3 out of respect for what he did last year and the fact that the position earned by TJ Hockenson, so be it, but I am not advocating in 2023. It's a good offense. He should, I guess, still, even with the addition of Jordan Addison, be second in the pecking order for targets. But I worry about his potential volume with the addition of Addison. Plus, some spike weeks certainly helped his end of season finish last year. Now that there probably is a little bit better competition for targets this year, not crazy about Hockenson with his increased price tag this season. Come back to me in 2024 about TJ Hockenson if his ADP goes back down 10, 15 spots. Then I might be a little bit more interested. George Kittle is my tight end 4. Again, this is a respect thing for Kittle based on what he has done over the course of his career. Kittle was actually the one who was the tight end 2 over Andrews and over Hockenson in fantasy points per game last year. He finished as the tight end 3 because he missed the first couple weeks of the season due to injury, and he got off to a slow start. Weeks 3 through 5, he was pretty much unusable. 4.8 half PPR points, 3.4 half PPR points, 5.2 half PPR points. That's not going to get it done. But he came on pretty strong after that as he kind of got his sea legs under him. 12.3 half PPR points week 6, 18.8 week 7, 11.4 week 8. Awesome. Great. That's what you want. Bye week 9. Came out with a bit of a dud in week 10, 2.6. But he bounced back real good for one of his best performances of the season, week 11, 22.4 half PPR points. Then weeks 12 and 13, 4.1 and 3.2. And you can throw week 14 in there as well, 4.8, not good. Where Kittle dominated for you was if you got to the fantasy playoffs with him. 23.3 half PPR points week 15. High water mark in week 16 was 27. Week 17 was kind of 10.3. That's championship week. You happen to play your championship week 18. He got you 16.9 points that week. So he ended the season, for the most part, incredibly strong. Double-digit half PPR points the final 4 weeks of the NFL season. But in between, weeks 3 through 5, weeks 12 through 14, he was under 6 half PPR points in all of those games, and he was 5 in all but one of those games. So it just speaks to just the unpredictability and the frustration of the tight end position. Kittle's ADP is around 59 or 60 in one quarterback leagues. The other thing you have to keep in mind with Kittle, he caught 11 touchdowns last year. And some of those weeks where he blew up toward the end of the season, Deebo Samuel was out of the lineup due to injury. Now Deebo is, coming into the season healthy. When you tack on the fact that it's a full offseason for Christian McCaffrey continuing to get integrated into that offense, it's just a lot of mouths to feed here between McCaffrey, Deebo, Brandon Ayuk, and Kittle. Kittle's a stud. He's one of the upper echelon tight ends in the NFL. He might be the most complete tight end in the NFL when you factor in his blocking capabilities. He might be the most complete NFL tight end. But we're not looking for the most complete NFL tight end in fantasy. We're looking for the guy who has the best shot, or looking for the guys at the best chance at volume. That's going to be a little bit more difficult for Kittle when you factor in the names that I threw out there and the variance of touchdown scoring year over year. Like Hawkinson, I do have shares of Kittle in best ball, but I am not going out of my way to draft Kittle at cost in 2023. He's going to have to come through with a lot of scores again for him to pay dividends. And you're spending a 6th round pick on a guy who, he had some spike weeks, but it took Deebo being out of the lineup for those chances to come to fruition. He does come into this offseason healthy, so that should give him a better chance to get off to a stronger start to start the year. I'll give him that. He was behind the 8 ball last year because he missed the first couple weeks of the season because he came into the season hurt. And then weeks through viable until week 6 last year. And then there was a 4-game stretch in 5 games between weeks 10 and 15 where you wish you didn't have to play him. Week 10, 2.6, and then weeks 12 through 14, 4.1, 3.2, 4.8. These are half PPR points. You don't want that from a tight end one that you probably drafted in the 4th or 5th round. So yeah, he's maybe a little cheaper this year, despite the strong finish to the season. But I'm probably going to be passing on Kittle in my higher stakes league, my redraft leagues. I'll look elsewhere. I'll look elsewhere from TJ Hawkinson, and I'll look elsewhere from George Kittle. Now we get to the group of guys, the stretch of guys that I am interested in. My tight end 5 is Dallas Goedert. His cost is a little depreciated. You have to remember he missed 5 games last season due to injury. With an ADP of 74, this is a little bit more of a palatable cost for a guy that can give you top 5 upside at the position, and he's attached obviously to one of the better offenses in the NFL. Goddard finished as 12 again. He missed weeks 11 through 15, but Goddard was way more consistent than guys like Hawkinson and Kittle. He finished as the tight end 5 in fantasy points per game. Weeks 1 through 5, you were feeling great about Dallas Goedert. In half PPR, 7.5 points week 1, 10.7 week 2, 10.1 week 3, 9.7 week 4, 13.5 week 5. I think Goddard's ADP was like in the 8th or 9th round last year. You're ecstatic with that type of start. Now, week 6, dud. These are going to happen with tight end. 3.2, not great. And then the Eagles had a week 7 bye. But then he kept it up. 9.4 week 8. He had a 20 half PPR points week 9. Stellar. And then week 10, 7.8. That's when he got hurt. I think he was well on his way to another strong game week 10. But then he missed the next 5 games. Week 11, week 12, 13, 14, 15. Goddard was out. He came back week 16, 8.2. Half PPR points, week 17, championship week, only 6, so not great. But again, just coming back from having just come back from missing 5 games, plus that was a game with Gardner Minshew, not Jalen Hurts. Goddard is a guy that I really like at cost this year. Significantly more than Kittle, significantly more than Hawkinson. He's cheaper by 20 picks over Hawkinson. Maybe not that many. Yeah. He's 23 picks cheaper than TJ Hawkinson. He's 13 picks cheaper than George Kittle. And he's about 4 or 5 picks cheaper than Kyle Pitts. At cost, I like Dallas Goedert than all of these guys. The weekly averages were much more rock solid. He's in a great offense, and he's cheaper than a lot of dudes that I think he can outperform. Yes, he's got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith to compete with for targets. No small task there. But he had to do that for the first, 9-10 weeks of the season that he was healthy, and he only gave you truly one bad performance, that 3.2 performance week 6. Other than that, in half PPR through the first 10 weeks, Dallas Goedert gave you at least 7 half PPR points. 4 of those 10 games, he gave you double digits with a balloon of 20 in week 9. That's the guy. If you don't get Kelsey and you don't get Andrews, that's the guy that I'm targeting inside the top 75 picks in one quarterback leagues at the tight end position. I like him more than Hawkinson. I like him more than Kittle. And I like him more than Kyle Pitts, all of whom are being drafted ahead of Dallas Goedert. Plus, I think Dallas Goedert, I think he's got like a damn near perfect RAS score. He's a great athlete, which is a good indicator of not a one size fits or not foolproof. It's not guaranteed, but it's a good indicator of potential tight end success at the NFL level. I'll take Dallas Goedert again at cost over Kittle, over Hawkinson, over Pitts. That's the guy I like. Now, speaking of Kyle Pitts, he is my tight end 6, and I'm still fine drafting this year. I'm not hammering him like I am Dallas Goedert. I've really warmed up to Darren Waller. I'll get to him in a bit, but I do like Kyle Pitts this year as well. I don't find myself drafting him a ton because I can get Goddard 5 picks later, and so I like that. I like that depreciated value for Dallas Goedert, especially when you consider the discrepancy it has to work with. Nevertheless, for the first time in his very short career so far, Kyle Pitts has an ADP that is actually palatable. It's the first time. He's been overdrafted the first 2 seasons of his career. Now it's a little bit more reasonable with an ADP of around 70 in one quarterback leagues. He was being drafted in the 3rd round last year. Way too high. Now you can have him 70 picks in a 12-team league. It's about the 6th round-ish. It's about the end of the 6th round. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that cost. He had the worst quarterback play. All the Falcons had terrible quarterback play last year with Marcus Mariota. There's not really a good way to quantify this, but there's just no way that Desmond Ridder is worse in any way, shape, or form than Marcus Mariota. Of all tight ends last year, I think it's like of all pass catchers last year, Kyle Pitts had the lowest catchable target rate in the friggin' league. There's nowhere to go but up this year. And now his ADP is like 35 picks cheaper than what it was last year. So again, I do like Dallas Goedert more than Kyle Pitts. Consensus ADP likes Kyle Pitts a little bit more. So I don't end up with Kyle Pitts a ton. But if I miss out on Dallas Goedert on the off chance that he gets drafted ahead of Kyle Pitts, I'm fine with taking Pitts 70 picks into a draft. His opportunities should be way better this year, because they can't get any worse than what they were last year. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So I'm fine with Pitts. The other guy I like in the upper echelon options at the tight end position is Darren Waller. Um, Similar story, I guess, as Dallas Goedert, maybe not as extreme. Or no, actually, maybe a little bit more extreme because I think Waller missed a little bit more time last year than Goddard did. Yeah, Waller missed like 8 or 9 games. Yeah, he missed. Yeah, Waller missed 9 games last year, so that's 4 more than Goddard did. So, bit more of an injury risk, and he's older, right? Waller is on the other side of 30 at this point, but that's okay for tight ends. We don't worry about that age cliff for tight ends. He's not a running back. This isn't. There's not the same level of concern just because Waller's a little bit older. He gets traded to the Giants this year for a third-round pick. I think based on the other wide receivers that the Giants have, he instantly becomes the top option in the passing game in the pecking order. Maybe outside of like Saquon, I guess. He should out target Saquon, but also Saquon's a running back. Waller should command the most targets of the pure pass catchers on this Giants offense. And on a per game basis last year, Waller was still fine. 9.9 points, half PPR points scored week 1, 14 week 2. Now, back-to-back bad games, weeks 3 and 4, 3.7 and 3.9. Again, it's the tight end position. For the most, this is going to happen. You have to take the tight ends. They're just going to have crappy weeks. This is just the nature. Unless you're named Travis Kelce, it's just the nature of the beast. Got hurt. Missed week 5, week 6, week 7. I think he returned week 8, but ended up not logging any stats. He put up a goose egg. He might have played like 1 or 2 snaps trying to give it a go. Didn't play the rest of the game. Probably burned a few people that put him in their lineup. That was a loss. Week 9 was the Raiders' bye last year. Waller also proceeded to miss weeks 10 through 14. He probably got dropped in a lot of redraft leagues, 10-team leagues, shallower leagues last year. Waller was probably a drop for a lot of people. When you miss 9 straight games, that's going to happen. But he did fine when he came back in the fantasy playoffs. 12.3 half PPR points week 15, 7.8 week 16, 14.7 week 17. You live with that. You feel good about that. By all accounts, he comes into this season healthy. He should go back to being the top target once again in the offense he plays in. That was Devontae Adams last year for Vegas. Now he's in New York catching passes from Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, Isaiah Hodgins, Paris Campbell. I know Jalen Hyatt is drawing rave reviews in training camp. Wan'Dale Robinson. These guys should not command more targets than Darren Waller. They just shouldn't. So he's another guy that I really like at cost. Not as much as Goddard because I believe in Jalen Hurts more than I believe in Daniel Jones, and those two offenses are, I believe in the Eagles to be in scoring position more frequently than the Giants. But Waller's ADP is down to 77. You can have him well into the 7th round of one quarterback 12-team drafts. He was still a low-end tight end 1 in fantasy points per game, but at this point now we're splitting hairs. He just didn't play enough to potentially put himself higher on a per scoring per week basis. He was behind guys like David Njoku, which is conceivable. Evan Ingram had a great year last year. He was also behind Taysom Hill and Zach Ertz on a per game basis. Zach Ertz is, I think he did tore ACL week 10. So he's working his way back, and Taysom Hill is just like, I don't know, the weirdest NFL player in the league right now based on where he lines up and how he gets utilized. Plus, he's that type of dude where he'll have 2 or 3 30-burger weeks in half PPR scoring, and then every other week will be 1 point, 3 point, 4 point, 5 points, maybe sprinkles in 6, 7, 8 points here or there, but, you know, Taysom Hill also had last year 1.4, 1.1, 0.1, and 3 and 2.5. These are weeks that he put up. So, I mean, I'll take a pure pass kicking, a pure actual position, a player who plays the position in Darren Waller over like a gadgety guy in Taysom Hill. Not worrying too much at this order of per weekly. Give me Darren Waller at his cost. Going off the board as the tight end 8, I definitely think he's got a great chance to go back into the top 5 conversation. If I say right now, The guys who finish in the top 5 outside of the top 5 are Dallas Goedert, Darren Waller as the obvious name, and the guys to fall out of that conversation would be Hawkinson and Kittle for me. Maybe Kittle continues to finish continues to have or end the season with a top 5 finish on the whole. But Goddard and Waller are 15 to 20 picks cheaper. It's just opportunity cost at this point. And then Njoku and Freiermuth round out the top 10 for me. These are guys that you can have about 100 picks into the draft. David Njoku should be pretty good. He was a tight end 1 in fantasy points per game. He should have a chance to build on that this year with a full normal offseason for Deshaun Watson. He was a little inconsistent last year, and his numbers took a bit of a hit when Watson returned. But when Deshaun Watson returned from his suspension last year, now he's got a full normal offseason to work with his offense. I feel fine with Njoku. And then Freiermuth. Freiermuth was pretty consistent last year, even though maybe it didn't feel like it because the Steelers' offense was not good for the first half of the season. But he cleared double-digit half PPR points like 7 times Freiermuth did. He was really consistent last year. 10 in week 1, 10.2 half PPR points week 2, 12 in week 4, 11.5 week 7, 11.9 in week 11. He just missed it week 13 with 9. He had 10.8 in week 14, 10.10 in week 16. I mean, that's 7 double-digit half PPR point weeks for Pat Freiermuth. Now, again, like every tight end, he had down weeks. 5 half PPR points week 3, 2.2 week 5. He didn't play week 6. 7.7 and 5.6 in weeks 8 and 10, respectively. There was a week 9 bye in there. Again, this is the ebb and flow of the tight end position, but Freiermuth was pretty consistent last year. I give Njoku the edge at tight end 9 over Freiermuth because of the expected quarterback play with Deshaun Watson, but the Steelers were pretty good on offense in the second half of the season last year. It looked like they were maybe starting to figure things out. Kenny Pickett in year 2, you just expect him to naturally take another step forward. Freiermuth should benefit from that in the theoretical situation where they're in scoring position more frequently. And he's just proven to be a pretty consistent guy, all things considered. So I got Freiermuth rounding out my top 10. Those are the top 10 tight ends that I have for the 2023 season. Again, one more time. Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, not drafting really. George Kittle, not really drafting. Dallas Goedert, am drafting. Ranking him high above Kyle Pitts, even though Pitts' ADP is higher. I'm drafting Goddard as much as I can. I do still like Kyle Pitts. He's my tight end 6, and I do like him at his depreciated cost this year compared to last year. Not as much as Goddard, but I still like him. I also like Darren Waller as my tight end 7. I'm going on my way to draft him as well. Evan Ingram is my tight end 8, who I just realized I didn't touch on. I passed over him. Sorry, Evan Ingram. I'll get to him in a minute. David Njoku is my tight end 9. Freiermuth is my tight end 10. Evan Ingram, he had a great season last year. What does the target pecking order look like now that Calvin Ridley requires offense? Evan Ingram finished as the tight end 6 and the tight end 8 in fantasy points per game. Pretty rock solid last year. He only had one blow-up game, but it was a big one in week 14, 33.7. That might have been the high watermark for all tight ends last year for any one week, including Travis Kelce. I think it was. Barely, but it was. Outside of that, I mean, he gave you some pretty consistent production, obviously sprinkled in with some down weeks because, newsflash, that's just the nature of the beast with the tight end position. 4.8 half PPR points week 1, 8.1 week 2, 3.4, 2.1 weeks 3 and 4. Very meh. 9.9 week 5. Good. Okay. Solid. 6.5 week 6. Meh. 8.7 week 7. Okay. 13.5 week 8. Good. Weeks 9 and 10. Not good. 1.3, 2.9. Bye week 11. 0.9 week 12. So obviously these are, that's a 4-week stretch and you include the bye week where Evan Ingram wasn't really giving you much of anything. But he came on pretty good for the stretch run into the fantasy playoffs. 11.5 half PPR points week 13. Again, he had the 33 burger week 14. 10.2 half PPR points week 15. 14.8 week 16. He hurt you championship week. 3.4 half PPR points scored. That's not good enough. So it was an up and down season for Evan Ingram. He was pretty good some weeks. He hurt you more than a few times. Now with Calvin Ridley in the mix, Evan Ingram is, again, out of respect for what he did last year, I have him ranked as my tight end 8. I'm only drafting him if he falls 15 spots below his ADP or if I end up with Trevor Lawrence. And I can put a little stack together in best ball. Outside of that, I'm giving Evan Ingram the George Kittle, TJ Hawkinson treatment this year. I'm not really drafting him. So that rounds out my top 10. Now I've got some sleepers that I can talk about at the tight end position. And of course, I'm happy to continue to take questions in the chat. I'll take a quick break to get to Alex's question. Happy to continue to do that throughout the rest of this stream. So you traded Alex, you traded Michael Mayer for Geno. That's fine. I mean, Geno's value is still pretty low for a guy who finished as QB5 last year. And all Seattle did was add and Zach Charbonnet in the draft. I mean, this offense should go. This offense should be really good. The only question with Geno Smith is, can he do it again? Can he do it in back-to-back years? That's literally it. Like, oh, he's kind of, he was kind of a journeyman. He took him a long time to get his footing in the NFL. Can he have 2 good back-to-back seasons? That's pretty much the only question with Geno Smith. His offense is loaded with talent, especially after the draft. So I'm fine with that. And you traded Dalton Kincaid for Jordan Love. I've really started to warm up to Dalton Kincaid. He is one of my tight end sleepers this year. He is a guy that I'm going to touch on here in a bit. At first, I wasn't buying Dalton Kincaid at his ADP, at least in best ball. It felt way too high for a rookie, even though he's a first-round pick attached to a good offense. I was thinking to myself, well, Dawson Knox is still there. They're going to have to run a ton of 12 personnel for Dalton Kincaid to see a significant chunk of snaps. And even then, how many opportunities is he going to have on those plays, any one given play here and there to see targets, to garner targets, to earn targets. I've warmed up to him quite a bit in the past week or so. I still don't have a ton of shares of him because I'm not going out of my way to draft him, but I'm not avoiding him at cost anymore. It sounds like he's getting a lot of opportunities in the slot in practice. This is going to be an interesting Bills offense this year. They don't have a ton of wide receiver depth behind Stephon Diggs. And so I'm not as scared of Dalton Kincaid as I used to be from an ADP perspective. So Love's really going to have to deliver in a big way to feel good about him moving forward, of course, just because he's unproven. You know, he's a little he's unproven, and so the jury's out on, is he the Packers quarterback of the future? Meanwhile, Kincaid is literally just this year a first-round pick of the Buffalo Bills. Now he gets to catch passes from Josh Allen, who we know what we're getting in Josh Allen. And with the lack of wide receiver depth that the Bills have, I've warmed up to the idea of Dalton Kincaid getting a larger role quicker than we previously anticipated. So I guess I'm doing 2 things here. I'm kind of answering Alex's question while also giving you guys some insight on why I kind of like Dalton Kincaid as a sleeper this year. I think I need a few more shares of Dalton Kincaid. It sounds like the Bills are going to run a ton of 12 personnel this year. It sounds like Kincaid is going to get a lot of opportunities in the slot. Now, Stephon Diggs gets those opportunities too, but they're going to move him all over the place. And obviously, his bread and butter is going to be as a stud bona fide wide receiver one on the outside. The Bills clear cut, without a doubt, without question, X receiver. But Dalton Kincaid is incredibly interesting. He's increasingly interesting despite the ADP that feels kind of high. I think it's around like 120. I'm gonna go ahead and double check that for you. I believe it's around 120 in 12-team one quarterback leagues. 130. So it's actually, I think it's maybe fallen a little bit. So at that cost, I am declaring now today, I need a little Kincaid shares. I think he's going to get a lot of playing time right away. Drafted him in the first round for a reason, and they didn't really address wide receiver. So the correlation is kind of there for Dalton Kincaid as far as rookie tight ends go. With an ADP of 130, you're not breaking the bank for a guy who, yes, he's unproven. He's a rookie. We've not seen him do anything at the NFL level yet. But in this offense, attached to Josh Allen, with the resource they spent to get him, to select him, I've warmed up to Dalton Kincaid. Even though the learning curve is usually steep and a difficult one for rookie tight ends, I'm going to buy him a little bit more than I previously thought I would to start the offseason. So I'm fine with acquiring Geno for Mayer, Alex. Kincaid for Love, that's a little bit more jury's still out. It seems like Kincaid's going to get a pretty good opportunity, a pretty large opportunity to start the season, and I do like him very much as a sleeper for the season at the tight end position. With an ADP of 130, that's a throw that I'm officially looking at. Dealing with some allergies. Apologies. So I do like Kincaid. Another guy I like, well, I always like Gerald Everett. I like Gerald Everett every single year, and I feel like everybody always it's like, oh, really, Gerald Everett? Like, why? Because I believe in the Chargers offense this year is why, to be honest. He finished as the tight end 15 last year, Everett did, but he was a little bit higher than that in fantasy points per game. Again, at this point in the rankings, when you're looking at the tight end 7 through the tight end 20, the points per game average is like a point that separates each one. But that's why I like Everett so much. His ADP is 150. And he gave you some really good performances to start the first month of the season. He was over 10 half PPR points 3 of the first 4 weeks. 12.9 week 1, 10.1 week 2, 3.5 week 3. Okay. One of the not one of the best tight ends in the league had a down week. Duh, we expect this. But bounced back with 14.6 half PPR points week 4. Then there was a little bit of a struggle bus. But again, the Chargers offense went in the tank last year. Justin Herbert broke his ribs week 2. Keenan Allen missed most of the season last year. Mike Williams missed like a month of into the second half of the season last year. This offense was never fully whole. Rashawn Slater, the starting left tackle, all-pro Rashawn Slater, was lost for the season week 4. This Chargers offense got completely screwed by the injury bug last year. And so everything... The trickle-down effect, affected everyone. But Everett was still pretty good on a per-week basis. Yeah, 0.7 week 5. That stinks. But 5.4 week 6, 8.8 week 7. Remember what you spent to get this guy. It was peanuts. 6.1 week 9, 3.3 week 10. Blah, whatever. All right. He didn't play week 11 due to injury. 5.8 week 12. 10.5 week 13. Good. 5.3, 6.2, weeks 14 and 15. He didn't play week 16. If you happen to roll the dice on him championship week, he gave you 9 half PPR points. Based on how the rest of your roster was potentially structured, if you spent like a pick, like 160 or so pick on Gerald Everett, that might have been all you needed at the tight end position. Now Justin Herbert comes into the season healthy. Kellen Moore is the new offensive coordinator. This is an offense that expects to push the ball down the field more frequently and more often this year. They should be in scoring position more frequently. Yeah, they did draft Quentin Johnson in the first round, so we expect him to command a strong share of targets. That could come at Everett's expense. But he's the starting tight end for what should be one of the upper echelon offenses in the NFL. And I still think people generally consider Justin Herbert, from a pure quarterback throwing the football perspective, a top 6 or 7 player at the position in the NFL. Why wouldn't you want his tight end 150 picks into the draft? So yeah, I'm going back to the well with Gerald Everett. His ADP of 150 is not breaking the bank in any way, shape, or form. You can have him with your last pick or two in a 14 or 15 round draft, even in 10 team leagues. Especially if you get Justin Herbert. If you end up with Justin Herbert, maybe you jump it up to round 13, but grab Gerald Everett. I'm drafting him once again as much as I can. A few more names here. So again, it's hard to trust rookie tight ends, right? The learning curve is generally steep. It's a difficult position for them to learn and play well when they first enter the NFL. But the reviews and reports have been pretty glowing out of Lions camp for Sam Laporta. Iowa product. He's a little smaller as far as tight ends go. He's 6'3". The upper echelon tight ends, a lot of them are in the 6'5", 6'6" range, or at least 6'4". So he's slightly smaller, standing at 6'3". But he's going to be the starting tight end, I think, from day one. It sounds like he's already been elevated to that spot by the Lions here in training camp. And they have a gaping hole at that spot because they traded TJ Hopkins in midseason to the Vikings. And then they spent the 33rd, 34th pick overall on Laporta. This dude should get a lot of playing time right away. And with Jameson Williams serving a suspension for the first 6 games of the season, this is a Lions offense that has expectations. This is a Lions team in general that has expectations. Someone's going to need to take the pressure off of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I guess you expect it to be Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but the other wide receivers are Josh Reynolds. Who else do they have? Marvin Jones, who is 33. He's got an ADP all the way down at 158. You're not breaking the bank for this guy. And he's got a chance, even as a rookie, to be featured relatively quickly, while Jameson Williams serves his 6-game suspension to start the season. I really like Sam Laporta this year. And I will stay in the NFC North. I know Notorious is he's like, when are you going to start talking about Cole Kmet? Well, the time has come. I also like Cole Kmet. I like him quite a bit with an ADP of around 150, just a couple spots below Gerald Everett. The passing volume in Chicago is yet to be determined. We don't know if how much more they're going to but this is the highest expectation for the offense that we've had in a few years. They've acquired DJ Moore. Justin Fields is coming into his 3rd year. They've addressed offensive line. They've added to the backfield with Donta Foreman and Roschon Johnson through the free agency and the NFL draft, respectively. Khalil Herbert is also there. Figure he should have a chance to see 200 or so, at least 150 combined carries and targets this year. But Cole Kmet just got paid. Just got a big contract extension from the Bears, which can only mean one thing. They have big plans for him in their offense. I think he caught 7 touchdowns last year, I believe. So there is some variance there, right? You Got to get a little lucky with touchdowns, but this was a Bears offense that was pretty much relying on getting into scoring position by Justin Fields running the ball last year. They should be a little bit better. They'd be a little bit more dynamic, and they should be a little bit more balanced now that Fields has DJ Moore to throw the ball to. Cole Kmet should also benefit from this. When you add a potential alpha wide receiver to the offense, that doesn't hurt the other stars in the offense. If anything, it takes the pressure off of them a little bit. DJ Moore's arrival should be good for Cole Kmet, and I'll throw in Darnell Mooney as well, but this is a tight end conversation, not a wide receiver conversation. Kmet just got paid, got a big raise from the Bears, got a big contract extension from the team. He figures to be a significant part of what they want to do on offense. 7 touchdowns might be difficult to replicate with DJ's arrival, but where he might lose a couple touchdowns, his volume should increase. About it again, this Bears offense is here, nice, but there should be an opportunity for a few more catches and yards on what should be a better Bears pass offense in 23. So, yeah, I like Cole Kmet, ADP of 150, getting drafted like a tight end too. Came on real strong after a really slow start to the season. He should be in line for a pretty good year. Maybe the week-to-week consistency is a little frustrating with Cole Kmet, but I really like him in best ball as a tight end 2 who absolutely has low-end tight end 1 upside in an ascending Bears offense. A couple more guys here, also in the 150 range. Actually, his ADP is slightly higher, but I am in on Tyler Higbee this year. And this one's kind of simple. 108 targets last year, and the Rams didn't really do anything of note at all to add to their receiving core for 2023. I think Matthew Stafford is about to pepper 2 dudes with targets, Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. 8 targets, 72 catches last year for 620 yards, only 3 touchdowns. But remember, the Rams offense went in the toilet last season, so scoring opportunities were a little bit more few and far between. That should be better with a healthy Matthew Stafford, a healthy Cooper Kupp, and Sean McVay is back for at least one more season as head coach and the most influential offensive mind on the sidelines. A little more expensive than these guys, Gerald Everett, Cole Kmet, Sam Laporta. His ADP is about 145. But again, when you're talking about like the tight end 8 and the tight end 20, the weekly average is usually like it's between like 1 and 2 points. It's nothing. It's peanuts. Season, he finished much lower on a per. It was because he played, I think, all but 1 game last year. So health was in Higbee's favor. He's going to have to duplicate those efforts this year. But with a healthy Matthew Stafford, his per weekly averages should go up. But he was pretty consistent when the Rams were fully healthy last year, when they were functioning, at full capacity. 6.4 half PPR points week 1, 10.6 week 2, 8.1 week 3, 12.3 week 4, 8.1 week 5. I mean, for a guy who was getting drafted very late last year because he suffered an injury in the playoffs in 2021, I mean, again, this is that dirt cheap production that you're looking for at the tight end position if you ultimately punt it. And he had a high watermark in week 16 of 25.9 half PPR points. So he's capable of those moonshot performances. Those spike, he's capable of at least 1 spike week. Maybe not more than that. Maybe he gets like 2 spike weeks. But I mean, if 50% of the time he can give you 10 half PPR points, you'll feel fine with taking Higbee 145 picks into your draft. A couple more names here by ADP. And then this might be a little bit of a shorter stream. Again, tight end rankings are so weird. They're so fluid. And it's impossible to do ranking for the tight ends like 11 to 24. It's not really worth anybody's time to try to some guys that you like as far as sleepers. Kincaid, Everett, Laporte, and then I will probably shut it down for the evening. Another guy I like, I mentioned earlier, Zach Ertz finished at M1 in fantasy points per game, but he tore his ACL in week 10. It was a pretty major injury, so it sounds like he's not going to necessarily be ready to start the season. And he's a little older at this point. It's not a good Cardinals team, or we're not expecting them to be very good. If anything, they're going to want to get him on the field for a few games and maybe see if they can trade him for anything to what's more to a more likely contending team. That would unleash Trey McBride, whose ADP is in the absolute toilet. I think you can have him like, 200 picks in. His ADP is 200. So you're not going to draft Trey McBride in shallow redraft leagues, but star him. Keep an eye on him as a good tight end streamer, I would say, through into the first couple weeks of the season. Ertz is rehabilitating, working his way back from a major injury he suffered. And then after that, I mean, Hollywood Brown, we expect to command the most targets in the offense, but DeAndre Hopkins is gone. We're down to Rondale Moore and Greg Dortch, some of the starting wide receivers. These guys are smaller and so far somewhat unproven. Trey McBride, if you remember last year, was going to the draft, the consensus tight end 1 in the pre-draft process. His season didn't play out that way. He's playing behind Zach Ertz, and the Cardinals' season kind of went in the toilet. Colt McCoy was playing a decent number of games last year in Kyler Murray's absence as he picked up a couple injuries. So it was inconsistent, and it can be a difficult transition for rookie tight ends from college to the NFL. I feel much better about Trey McBride this year, and his ADP is in the absolute dirt. So you're not going to draft him in redraft leagues, but keep an eye on Trey McBride. I think he's poised to have a real nice season relative to expectations. And these are the type of guys that you're looking for, the dudes who cost nothing. Basically, the guys who are waiver wire options 2-3 weeks into season. And he's got a wide open opportunity for targets on a rebuilding Cardinals offense with a bunch of question marks at wide receiver behind Marquise Brown. I also like Michael Wilson for what it's worth. He has got a chance to start on the outside, but this is a tight end conversation, not all. Keep your eye on Trey McBride. I would not draft him, but I would put him on your watch list. Competition for targets in Arizona are currently wide open. And with Zach Ertz probably not ready to start the season, Trey McBride could have shot at any to have a shot at decent, if not somewhat inconsistent production throughout the season. But hey, that's every tight end not named Travis Kelce. Somewhat inconsistent. You take the good. Last thoughts here on some tight end sleepers, and then I'll probably call it for the evening. I like both New England tight ends. I like Mike Gesicki and I like Hunter Henry. Again, because they are dirt cheap. Mike Gesicki's ADP is 188. Hunter Henry's is 211. This was a Patriots offense that was an absolute mess last year. They made several mistakes with the coaching staff. Matt Patricia is like a defensive guy who was running the offense. Mac Jones took a step back last year as a result. They weren't a good team. They weren't a good offense. They had very little to work with in the passing game. Now things should be a little different. In his Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator, an actual offensive mind, someone who has worked with the Patriots in the past. He was previously the team's offensive coordinator before he got hired way back when as head coach of the Houston Texans. So now he's back in probably a somewhat familiar situation. When he was the last time he was there, it was Tom Brady. So we're talking about a freaking difference with Mac Jones. But Mac Jones likes throwing the tight ends. Gone is Jonnu Smith. Gone is Jacoby Myers. In is Juju Smith-Schuster. He's going to be the team's wide receiver 1. But Mike Gesicki, if you remember, he was a pretty good vertical threat for the Miami Dolphins before they got acquired Tyreek Hill last year in a trade. Gesicki's production fell way off last year for the Dolphins because you're going to throw Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle or Mike Gesicki. Y'all already know. But there's Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle, anything close to that in New England. Mike Gesicki should go back to putting up decent numbers in the Patriots offense, and his ADP is pretty much off the radar, a lot like Trey McBride. You can say the same exact thing about Hunter Henry. These are guys that should command a good number of targets in this Patriots offense that out Juju Smith-Schuster, it's a whole lot. It's a hodgepodge. Question marks. Why? They gave Devontae Parker decent money, but Jacoby Myers is gone. Nelson Aguilar is gone. I guess they're expecting or hoping maybe Tyquan Thornton takes a step forward. But I think a potential sneaky strength of this Patriots offense will be their tight ends catching passes. They historically like to run a lot of 12 personnel under Bill Belichick. Patriot offenses under Bill Belichick, they run 12 personnel. Mike Gesicki and Hunter Henry should be in the field a lot. And their ADPs are, again, off the radar. This offense should be better with an actual offensive coordinator working with Mac Jones, calling the shots, not Matt Patricia, who is a defensive guy. This should be better. This offense should be better. Mike Gesicki is a pretty good proven vertical threat at the tight end position. And with so few proven options at the wide receiver position, Gesicki should have a chance to rediscover some of the success he had from a production perspective in Miami. I like Gesicki at cost, an ADP of 188, dirt cheap. Put him on your watch list. Star him in your pre-draft process. You probably draft him. In fact, I think it's fair to say you don't have to draft him. But if you punish and keep, it goes for Hunter Henry. Both of these guys should be viable. Henry only caught 2 touchdowns, but he had 9 in 2021. I think we could expect a bit of a bounce back for Hunter Henry. He didn't fall off, Henry did, that much from a good 2021 to 2022. He had 50 catches for 603 yards and 9 touchdowns in 2021. All those numbers came down to 41, 509, and 2 last year in a dysfunctional Patriots offense. So you can have Hunter Henry 200 picks into a draft, and it's fair to expect all of those numbers to improve in what should be a better offense where Mac Jones has a real offensive coordinator to work with. So again, one more time to kind of wrap things up. My top 10 tight ends for the season are Travis Kelce. Draft him 7th or 8th overall. Set and forget. If you're not in a position to do that, Mark Andrews is my tight end too. I do like him 28, 29, 30 picks into a 1 quarterback draft. I think he's destined for stronger success this year than last year. TJ Hawkinson and George Kittle are my tight ends 3 and 4, respectively. I'm not crazy about them at cost. I do love Dallas Goedert as my tight end 5 with an ADP of about 75. He's the dude that I'm targeting as top 5 potential tight ends go. Slightly over Kyle Pitts. Pitt's ADP is 5 spots higher than Goddard, but I like Goddard's offense and consistency a little bit better. That being said, Kyle Pitts is my tight end 6, and I do like his chances when you factor in what should be better quarterback play and significantly reduced cost compared to last year. Darren Waller's my tight end 7, and I'm also targeting him. I think he should lead the Giants easily target per game still pretty consistent last year. Health, the only issue, but you could say the same thing about any NFL player. Evan Ingram's my tight end 8. He was a tight end 9, I think, in fantasy in overall finish, but he was lower than that on a points per game basis. With the addition of Calvin Ridley to the Jags offense, I'm not targeting Evan Ingram. And then David Njoku and Pat Freiermuth round out my top 10, 9 and 10 respectively. I think Njoku's got the edge due to better quarterback play, but Pat Freiermuth was a little bit more consistent last year. They both have similar ADPs, sure of what you prefer. Potential for maybe high spike weeks with Njoku, but a little bit more consistency with Freiermuth. The sleepers that I'm particularly interested in at the tight end position with an ADP of 130 or lower. Dalton Kincaid. Bills don't have a ton outside of Stephon Diggs at wide receiver. They spent a first-round pick on him. He's going to be involved in the offense more than I think people are maybe realizing. Gerald Everett with an ADP of 150. Sam Laporta, not too far below that. And Tyler Higbee with an ADP of around 145. I think all of these guys have a chance to have some real good success with ADPs around 150. Higbee should be peppered with targets. Everett is in one of the better offenses on what I think is going to be a better Chargers offense this year compared to last year. And then Sam Laporta, drawing rave reviews in camp, has an easy path to targets and opportunity in a Lions offense that is going to be looking for somebody to step up while Jameson Williams serves a 6-game suspension. I like Trey McBride. Keep an eye on him on waivers the first couple weeks of the season as Zach Ertz works his way back from a major injury. And the New England Patriots tight ends. The Patriots offense should be better this year compared to last year. I think Gesicki has a real good chance to bounce back to some of the production enjoyed before the Dolphins acquired Tyreek Hill. And then Hunter Henry caught 9 touchdowns just 2 years ago. He should have a chance for some positive touchdown regression this season in what should be a better Patriots offense. That is all I have for the tight ends. I'm happy to go over any one specific name if you guys care to hear about anything more on the tight end position. Obviously, it's the biggest crapshoot of all of the positions, so it can be a little murky to navigate, but that's what I'm here for. Feel free to hit me up in Discord if you have any questions about tight ends in general, whether it's some of the higher end names or sleepers, whatever may have. I'm happy to talk shop there. Discord is second link in the description of this video. If you're not a part of that community, we would be happy to have you. We would love to have you. And then, of course, one more time, as we approach the season, if you are interested in supporting the channel, if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, I do have membership levels. Definitely looking to put together a Facemask membership redraft league. We would need a few more members to sign up for that to come to fruition. Next year, I will look to put a dynasty league together. So certainly be on the lookout for that in 2024. But for this year, we can put some redraft leagues together as well. If you are interested, first link in the description of this live stream, and all videos on my channel give you a little bit more information about some of the perks of memberships on the channel. But that'll do it for me tonight. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to stream on Thursday. I got the dog has a vet appointment. He's all good, but he's got a minor infection that he's got to get cleaned up, but he's okay. So I might do a later stream that night. I'll try to sort out my schedule. I'll let you guys know in Discord and on a community post as soon as I can figure that out. But I will try to come back this week. Now the training camp is in full force. There's plenty to talk about, and there will continue to be headlines that develop that will be worth touching on as it pertains to fantasy. But that'll do it for me tonight. Thank you guys for coming in and hanging out and tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. I will see you all at some point later this week. Thanks, everybody. Hope everybody's got a good start thus far. Have a good night.